You really need to pay attention to this label. I'm not someone who gets easily alarmed. I've spent years studying food policy, food labels, nutrition, and what ends up in the modern diet. And honestly, I thought I had seen it all. But a few months ago, something started catching my eye. A tiny phrase, printed so small that most people would never even notice it. At first, I brushed it off, but then I saw it again, and again, and again. I was in the grocery store this morning, and it felt like every other product had this line hidden somewhere on the package. It's not an ingredient. It's not a warning. It's not a nutrition fact. It simply says, contains a bioengineered food ingredient. Most people don't even register it. It blends into the background. But once you notice it, you start realizing how widespread it really is. You'll find it on everyday foods, bread, crackers, canned vegetables, salad dressings, condiments, cereals, snack bars, frozen meals, foods that look completely normal and familiar. And that's what made me stop and think, why is this label everywhere? Why is it so subtle? And why did we suddenly start using this new term? I'm Dr. James Whitaker, and I want to explain exactly what this phrase means, because it didn't just appear out of nowhere. There's a story behind it, and it says a lot about how our food system operates today. A few years ago, companies were required to label GMOs clearly. It was simple. If a food contained genetically modified ingredients, the package had to say GMO or genetically modified. It was clear, straightforward, and right on the front of the label. And you probably remember this. There was a lot of debate about GMOs. A lot of people had concerns. And whether you personally avoid GMOs or not, the fact is that consumers started making different choices once that label was visible. People began buying fewer products containing GMO ingredients. Guess what happened? Sales dropped. Major food companies noticed, and they weren't happy. So they pushed for change. They lobbied Congress aggressively. And in 2016, a law passed that replaced the term GMO with a new, less familiar term, bioengineered. And unlike the big, bold GMO labels we were used to, this new version wasn't required to be front and center. It could be tucked away on the back in small print or replaced entirely with a tiny QR code. And that's exactly what many companies did. The rollout happened slowly, quietly. No big announcement, no widespread public explanation. By the time the label actually appeared on packages, most people weren't paying attention. So what does bioengineered actually mean? According to the USDA, it means the food contains genetic material that's been altered in a way that doesn't occur naturally. In plain English, scientists modify the DNA of crops in a lab. The most common ones are corn, soy, canola, and sugar beets. These crops are engineered to grow faster, survive harsh conditions, resist insects, and, this is a big one, tolerate high amounts of chemical sprays like herbicides. That's why these crops are so attractive to large-scale manufacturers. They're predictable, resistant, and cheap to produce. Let me give you a simple example. Think of a field of corn. Normally, if you sprayed that field with a heavy herbicide, the corn would die along with the weeds. But bioengineered corn is designed to survive the spray. The weeds die, the corn lives. That's the whole point. But here's the problem. When a crop is created specifically to withstand heavy spraying, that means it's being sprayed a lot. And those chemical residues don't just disappear. They don't magically evaporate just because the plant didn't die. They stay on the crop, and in many cases, inside the crop. Glyphosate, the main chemical in Roundup, is the most widely used herbicide in the world. And yes, this is the same chemical that's been at the center of lawsuits, scientific debates, and health concerns for years. Research has linked long-term glyphosate exposure to a number of issues, including gut imbalance, inflammation, hormonal disruption, and even certain cancers. The World Health Organization has classified it as a probable carcinogen. Now, not every agency agrees on the level of risk, but no one disputes this. Glyphosate is everywhere in modern agriculture, and we are exposed to it far more often than we realize. And here's something most people don't think about. Even if you don't eat corn or soy directly, these crops show up in countless forms. Corn oil, corn syrup, soy lecithin, canola oil, sugar from sugar beets. They're used in breads, granolas, cookies, crackers, sauces, frozen foods, fast foods, salad dressings, baked goods, snacks, cereals, almost everything in the middle aisles of the grocery store. These same crops are also used for animal feed. So if you are buying meat, the animal may have been fed with bioengineered, heavily sprayed grains. So when people say, "Oh, I don't eat GMOs," most of the time they are, without realizing it. One serving of something with glyphosate residue isn't likely to make someone sick, but what about years of eating these foods day after day? That's where the concerns grow. And this is something I see in my patients. People who come in with chronic inflammation, persistent digestive issues, hormonal imbalances, fatigue, autoimmune flares, symptoms that don't always have one simple explanation. Often, it's years of subtle exposures that add up. Now let's talk about the label itself, because this part frustrates me. Not only did the wording change, but companies aren't required to tell you which ingredient is bioengineered. It could be the oil. It could be the sugar. It could be a thickener or an additive made from corn or soy. It could be multiple ingredients. There's no clear way to know. And instead of printing the phrase clearly, companies can choose to use a tiny QR code that says "Scan for more information." Most people never see it. Most people never scan it. And honestly, even if they did, the information on the website isn't always as clear as people expect. So, technically, yes, the disclosure exists, but practically, it's easy to miss, and it leaves consumers without the transparency they asked for in the first place. This is what bothers me most. It's not about whether every genetically modified food is dangerous or not. Reasonable people can disagree on that. It's about honesty. It's about respect. It's about allowing people to make informed choices about what they put into their bodies. You shouldn't need a magnifying glass or a QR scanner to know what you're eating. I always tell people, eat as many whole, real foods as you reasonably can. Foods that don't need labels. Fruits, vegetables, quality meats, eggs, nuts, seeds. If you do buy packaged foods, pay attention. Don't trust the buzzwords on the front of the package. Natural, heart-healthy, whole grain, light, organic inspired. These phrases can be misleading. Always flip the package around and look at the ingredients list. Sometimes that list tells you everything you really need to know. And here's another thing people don't talk enough about. Companies change their formulas quietly all the time. I've had patients come in saying, "I've used this product for years. Why am I reacting to it now?" And then we look at the label and, sure enough, different ingredients. Sometimes cheaper fillers, sometimes synthetic additives, sometimes oils that weren't used before. You have to check labels regularly, even on familiar items. That's just the reality of today's food and product industry. When so much of our food supply is built around genetically altered, heavily sprayed, ultra-processed ingredients, we lose access to real nutrition. We lose what our bodies were designed to eat. We end up eating food-like products instead of actual food. And the truth is, your body knows the difference. It responds differently. It feels different. The government may have quietly introduced the term bioengineered, but you don't have to quietly accept the foods that come with it. You have the right to know what you're putting into your body. You have the right to choose what you feed your family. You have the right to transparency. Don't be afraid of food. Just be aware of it. Read your labels. Ask questions. Make the best choices you can with the information you have. Every step counts, and every bit of awareness gives you more control over your health. You deserve honesty. You deserve clarity. And you deserve real food, not just food that's designed to be cheap, convenient, and long-lasting.